I'm Carrie.
I'm Toni, and we are.
Two cranky creatives.
This podcast is brought to you by the Graphics Gang, our online community you can find at patreon.com/graphics gang. Paid members can also watch many of the unedited podcast video recordings.
So, what are we cranky about today, Carrie?
Oh, Toni, you know what we are cranky about today is stolen art. And by art, I mean any kind of visual art, music, books, you name it, any kind of art form that gets stolen. That makes me really cranky.
Yeah, and I will go so far as to say I get a little bit more than cranky. I get downright pissed when it happens because, first of all, I do not understand the mindset of someone who thinks they have a right to steal from somebody else. I don't fundamentally understand what makes somebody think they can do that.
Yeah. And I agree. I think it takes a certain type of person to do that. Um I do think that I imagine when I picture, it's funny because I've had my art stolen. When that happened to me, I have a vision in my head. I'm trying to picture who this person is,
Mhm.
if it's even a person or it's just a machine. It's probably a person behind it somewhere.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to picture this person and I'm picturing like that 80s neighborhood watch like silhouette dude. Like this like quintessential criminal that's like sneaking around in the shadows of the internet
Mhm.
and like stealing my art. But I also wonder if people there isn't a mindset and people don't think about it, and they don't care, or God forbid they should know, but maybe they don't know any better. It depends
Yeah.
on what gets stolen and how, but I'm pretty sure that my general feeling is it's somebody who has malicious intent, not against me personally, but they're like, I know this is wrong and I'm going to do it anyway because I want to make money and I don't care about, intellectual property or ownership or whatever.
Right. And I think so I think there's definitely that classification of person. And then I think there's the inadvertent ignorant person who does not understand our convoluted copyright laws.
Yes,
Right.
that's true. And they are confusing, Shepherd Ferry, case in point. I mean, there is gray area with ownership, but yeah, I
Elaborate
would
on
love.
that. What's Shepherd Ferry?
Oh, Shepherd Ferry, sorry. You remember the Obama Hope poster?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
So that was designed by a gentleman named Shepherd Ferry,
I
very
remember this now.
talented.
Hmm.
Yeah, and there was a huge uproar because it was, first of all, it's a likeness of a famous person, so there's
Right.
that issue. But
Hmm.
the other thing is that it was a photo taken by a photographer who owned the copyright to the photo. So there were two layers of intellectual property. And
Right.
that is kind of one of those, poster children cases of, this is what happened and this is what can happen. But yeah, I always think of that because copyright is confusing, and I'm pretty sure Shepard Fairey's intention was not, oh, I can't wait to steal this and screw over the
Right.
photographer. And he was making Obama look good, it
Right.
wasn't disparaging or anything. But still, it became a legal battle. um,
Right. And he probably
and
believed that the photo fell under fair use, which is its whole confusing thing. And I do want to
yes,
very quickly throw the disclaimer. We are
yeah.
not lawyers.
I was about to
We
do that.
yeah, we are not lawyers. Anything we say is strictly our personal understanding of copyright law and is
Yeah.
not to be intended as legal advice in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you. You know what? I actually, before we started our podcast, was like trying to remind myself to say something like that. And yes, anything we say on this podcast, period, especially this one, because we're talking about legal stuff, is for educational purposes only. And it's
Exactly.
our opinion and, does not necessarily represent the opinions of our potential future sponsors.
Right. Exactly.
But
Exactly.
yeah, so I would love, because I think you and I both have such experience and we're both good storytellers in terms of telling what happened to us in the past. I would love to hear what happened with you when you had your artwork, which was your book, stolen,
Mhm.
and what you did, and then I'll share mine.
Sure, sure. And I'm actually going to tell two quick stories because one is an inadvertent time where I'm the one who screwed up,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So
It
I took a,
happens.
yeah, absolutely, right? So I took a class and I did, it was an urban sketching class. And a bunch of my friends wanted to buy this print, right? So it was like a building, this cute little building in a very cute color scheme, and they wanted to turn it into pillows. So I'm like, okay. So I threw up on POD, didn't think about it at all, shared it on Instagram, tagged the woman whose class it was because, hey, I took your class and look, my friends want to buy it. And she messaged me privately and was like, you can't do that. That is my composition. And I was like, floor, because I was like, first of all, I was so like aghast, right? Because I had already had my own books stolen. But this was one of those things where you think, a lot of people think because you draw it, right? You physically sit down and draw it, that means you own the copyright. And I stumbled into that because I did not realize that. I mean, it was just my friends. I wasn't, as soon as my friends bought it, I took it down,
Mhm.
but I did not understand that I was infringing copyright by doing that. Right. So that's one, that's me screwing up. But what happened to me? So, for the readers, or excuse me, the listeners that don't know, I used to write romance novels. And I had some books that were up on Amazon, and these were self published. These two books were self published. And all of a sudden, some fan of mine reached out to me to say, "Hey, I think these are your books being sold by this guy." And so I went and they gave me the Amazon links and I went, and sure enough, not only was it my book, it was my cover art, which
What?
I've always designed my own covers. When I self-publish, I design my, because obviously, right? So I design my own covers. And he didn't even change the name. He literally just stole it, threw it
Wow.
up, did not remove my name from the cover, right? Was charging twice what I was charging for it.
Of course.
And the crazy mess was getting Amazon to take it down.
Really? Yeah, I
Yeah.
wonder about that. You were going through KDP, right? Kindle Direct
Yes.
Publishing? Yeah.
Hmm. Yep.
So
And
was
first
that
it was, well, I actually have generally never had a problem with KDP. I have self published probably 10 or 15 short stories through that. All of this is gone now. I took it all down at some point. But like 10 or 15 short stories, one novel, two novels are self published through it. I have one that's still out there now. But I've never had an issue. But trying to find a human being to interact with,
yeah.
right? And I was, at that point, I mean, this was before I got my book contract and had like a real publisher and everything like that. So I was doing it all by myself and just trying to find someone who would like listen to what I am saying. Like, here is my link, compare the text, compare, because you can get a sample through Kindle.
Mhm.
So I got a sample of these stolen books to make sure it really was, he hadn't just stolen my cover art, and I really, and to compare, and I'm like, you can compare, see, it's word for word. And it probably took 2 months before I got Amazon to take it down.
Did he make it do you know if he made any sales in that
No
time?
clue.
I would imagine so.
He had to have because looking at the cover art, if you thought it was me, you bought the book. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah,
And
nobody would know any different.
right, because because he kept my cover art and he kept the exact same title, unless you really paid attention to that little teeny tiny author name,
Yeah.
you would just click, you would just see the cover that had my name on it and and buy it.
Yeah,
And
and
so
typically, like, on Amazon, if I'm searching for a book, I'm typically just searching for the title most likely,
right,
and then if I see the author's name, I will recognize, but the title is usually my first thought. So,
right,
yeah, that is crazy, and it took them 2
exactly.
months, but they did take it down?
They did take it down eventually, but it was a grand total of 2 months before it was gone.
Oh my gosh, that's
And mind you,
crazy.
I can't police all the other networks, so I don't know if he put it all these other places, but Amazon was the only one that I specifically was directed to and that I found it on. So,
Yeah. That's the fun of having your art stolen.
mhm,
Any kind of art is it's just, there you don't know what else is out there. The good old internet, Wild West, website and not even little websites. I mean, it could be on some other, website somewhere that you don't know about.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I have heard from so many artists about getting alerted to their art, but they didn't find it themselves.
Yeah,
Someone else saw it. And yeah, I'm really sorry that happened to you. And so I guess you just had to kind of go through the process of like trying to find someone at Amazon to get in
Mhm.
touch with. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming through KDP, they have like a dedicated help team or something.
I guess. I mean, it took, drilling down through a million clicks to find the help and then, sending a message and then waiting and waiting and waiting for that message to be answered. And in the meantime, though, I did message the author with a
Oh,
cease and
okay.
desist. You know what I'm saying? Because, like,
So
you
how
can,
did you do that and what
through,
happened?
well, through the author page,
Okay,
right?
okay.
And so, but and this was back in the day. I don't know if you can still do it because this would have been 2008 or 9 that this
Okay.
happened. So I don't know if you can still do that. But back then I was able to like, and I was like, you like, this is my stuff. What the
Mhm.
fuck are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
How did you approach them? Were you just like, listen, buddy?
I was very direct, minus the curse words. No, I mean, I was professional. And, I looked online and was like, for a template of a cease and desist, and probably paid like legal Zoom, whatever it costs to get a template for a cease and desist, because, Italian that I am, I want to curse somebody out. But, I basically just sent a cease and desist.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
then I had a very popular blog at that point in time. I had thousands of followers, which is how I was alerted. And I posted and was like, if you see this person selling this book anywhere, let me know. Cause I was
Yeah.
like, public shaming, dude, you did
Yeah.
it, so
Yeah. Yeah. That is crazy. Well, I'm really glad you got it resolved. I'm really sorry that took so long. I mean, that is the joy of trying to get in touch with anybody at these big companies. It's like they don't want you to reach them, but
no,
you're the content creator that's making them money,
exactly.
which is like you would think that they would make it a little bit easier.
Yeah,
Ugh,
you would think. But tell
yeah.
us your story.
Well, so I've had my artwork stolen a few different times. So first of all, actually, I wanted to respond to your accidental theft
Uh-huh.
situation. So I think you made a really good point that I would love to, I guess, reiterate. Yeah, just because you drew something, if you take someone's art and you just trace over it, or if you have someone's composition, if it's a composition where it's like some generic buildings that are like squares and rectangles, okay, fine.
Right.
That's really hard to
Yeah.
decipher. But if someone has a really unique composition, like there's a person riding a bicycle in front of a building and the roof is angled and there's a flower pot, and then you just take that, and even if you draw it yourself, the person who came up with that composition could possibly go after you. Again,
Right.
this is all kind of a gray area, but
Yeah.
it's really easy, and I don't want anybody listening to this to feel A, terrified
Right.
on either side of this, or B, ashamed, because it
Right.
happens.
Yeah.
Art is a subjective medium,
Right.
and it is inevitable that everyone's art will get stolen at one
Yeah.
point, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And it is highly likely, and you are not to blame unless you did it on purpose, that you may accidentally, steal someone's art. And steal it could be imitate, copy, whatever.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's where it's kind of a mess. And again, I'm not an attorney, but it is a gray area.
Right.
Um,
And to be fair, it was a Skillshare class that I took. So I did an exact rendering of what she was teaching. It
yeah.
wasn't like I did it in my style, which would
Yeah.
be that you're getting a little bit grayer there at that point.
Yeah.
It was an
Yeah.
exact rendering of what so it was her composition. And I
Right.
just felt like stupid, to be honest, because I was
I
like,
don't
I
think you
should
should
have
feel
known that.
stupid at all though, because especially when you're taking classes from an artist and it's a class on drawing,
Yeah.
it is going to happen that your art looks like theirs.
Yeah.
I just recently launched a hand lettering class and people are using my same brush,
Yeah.
and some of them are using a similar color palette. Some of them even use the same words. And
Yeah.
I'm okay with that because it's a class that I'm teaching, and I'm not really that worried about it. Now, if somebody uses my cat but exact illustration traces that, I'm gonna get mad.
Right.
But yeah, it is such a weird gray area. So I definitely don't want anybody listening to feel ashamed or whatever. Here's what I do. Well, I'll tell you about my stolen art, and then I'll tell you what I do on both sides to
Mhm.
handle someone stealing my art, but also to prevent myself. I have a great Dolly Parton example because
Okay,
I
cool.
love her. And if I forget, remind me that I need to tell that story. So, okay. So, I've had my art stolen two different ways. It's been multiple times, but one time it was on Redbubble and somebody stole my art directly. They just screen captured my image and it had my signature on it. And then they literally just downloaded it as a low res JPEG and then re-uploaded it onto their account.
Mm.
And I actually happened to be on there because I was like researching keywords and then I just stumbled upon it. And
Wow.
that happened semi recently, like within the last few years. But let me tell you, I didn't know what Redbubble was about 8, 9 years ago. And the way I found out about Redbubble was because I worked on the TV show *Halt and Catch Fire*, if you've heard of that.
I've heard of it.
It's been a minute since it was on TV, but they had me design an original logo for a fake computer company, the Cardiff Giant, and it apparently became like a cult, hit
Yeah, I've
or,
seen that. Mhm.
yeah. So the thing is, so I designed that logo. But the thing is, so I designed that logo as a work for hire for AMC Studios. I
Right.
don't own that. So
Right.
I have never put that anywhere because I know better because that's not my property.
Right.
They paid me my paycheck and I gave them the rights to the art and that's how it worked and I was totally fine with that. And then I didn't know what Redbubble was about 8 or 9 years ago. And then I was looking for press on the show because there had been like some articles about the show and I wanted to put them on my website, like, hey, look, here I am, here's my art on the show and that got accolades or whatever. And then I found the Cardiff Giant logo. Somebody had remade it and put it on Redbubble.
Mhm.
And the way I handled that was actually really easy. All I did was email the unit production manager and AMC Studios because I had a direct line to them and just sent
Mhm.
them the link. But when it happened to me semi recently, it was a little more complicated because it was just me. So I contacted Redbubble, and then I think I hit like a report button. But that took a while, just like your situation did too, because they're a big company. So in the meantime, I sent a message to the person and I really wanted to be a jerk, but I said, hey, I'm not sure if you're aware. Yeah, right. But this is my art. Here's mine. And you have illegally stolen my art. Would you please take it down? Uh,
Uh-huh.
and I said, I have alerted Redbubble, but it may take them a while. So I'm sure they'd appreciate you proactively taking it down. And the person actually did.
That's nice.
But I didn't publicly shame them, even though,
Mhm.
oh my God, did I want to?
Yeah.
I've heard horror stories about people doing that and then they look like the bad guy,
Uh-huh.
which is totally ridiculous. But I kind of am afraid to do that because I don't want people to see me as this like mean, litigious person, I guess. But
You're
it
so
made me
nice, Carrie.
cranky. Well, it sure made me cranky, and believe me, there were all kinds of curse words flying around in my house, but
Uh-huh.
not out of my fingers onto the keyboard. So,
Yeah, yeah.
I've worked in a lot of really toxic work environments in many different fields, including film, and I know how to shut up and smile even when I'm pissed.
Oh, yeah.
And I just was like, it's not going to do me any good.
Yeah.
So why would I bother when it's just gonna make me look bad? So I'm
Right.
just gonna be nice, and it worked.
I
Um,
think that's a woman thing too, though. So first, I do want to say I'm sorry that that happened to you, but I do think that's a woman thing because I have no, so like I have been at all levels of corporate America, right? I've been in the C-suite, I've been, all of that. And but I have noticed the way I write my emails whenever I'm going to be in a challenging situation, I default to this concept of like, maybe I'm confused, but I
oh,
thought you
me
said you were going
too.
to do XYZ instead of just saying, hey, you said this and you did that, dumbass. So you know what I'm saying? It's like maybe I misunderstood or maybe I'm missing something, and it frustrates me every time I do it. But at the same time, I'm not trying to, I have been fired for reporting a boss for sexual harassment.
Well,
So
that
I,
wow.
you know what
The
I'm saying? So
comment,
like
oh my God.
and it wasn't that he was trying to sleep with me, but it was gendered harassment, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I was being harassed because I was a female. It
Ugh.
wasn't so that's technically sexual harassment. And yeah, I got fired within 2 days of making that report.
Was that
So
retaliation? Did you hire a lawyer?
well, in the state of Virginia, all the laws favor the employer. Yes, I contacted a lawyer and they
Uh,
would not take the case. They told me you're 100% right, but I can't prove it in court. So
oh,
like,
yeah.
okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Wow. You're
So
right. As women, I mean, I am totally guilty of that. I've gotten a lot better at working professionally as I don't, like, if I'm following up with someone, I try not to say the words just, oh, sorry to bother you.
mm,
I'm just, but I do, you know, shy. I'm assertive, but I do tend to do the maybe I'm confused, but, or I'm not sure, but I think you said,
right,
instead of really what I would like to say, which is you completely just contradicted yourself.
right,
What the hell am I supposed to do with this information?
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I do try to like give people grace that maybe I did misunderstand, but there are some times where I know, no, you screwed up because I have your email from 2 weeks ago that you said you were going to do XYZ and you didn't do it. And now I got to follow up with you. And so I'm going to write it in this way so that you don't come after me. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Or this doesn't blow the relationship up, or something or whatever. And it's just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I mean, as women artists, it is a unique situation to be in because we are expected to always be nice to everyone. Again, just like what I said before about why I think we need this podcast. I mean, I was raised, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And
Yeah.
my mom, who is a psychotherapist, does assertiveness training. But even then, she's still like, well, you still need to be polite and professional. And I know you do. But,
Hmm.
there's a fine line between being polite and professional and then just completely bending over and being like, letting people walk all over you. So,
Right, right. Because I've literally had it written into performance reviews that I was aggressive
what?
and intimidating, and all kinds of things, and but I have traditionally worked in male dominated fields. So I've been in technology
Mhm.
and then I was in anti-terrorism, in technology inside of anti-terrorism. And so, it's just, but where I'm going, where, I see all of this kind of where my train of thought was going was as we assert ourselves to protect our art, making sure we're not softening what we say and do because it's our right to protect our art. It's our right to that's our IP. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? And I think this
Yes.
is a unique challenge that women have that, I'm going to generalize completely, but I don't think men think like this.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I know for me, I do think like that. I'm like, I don't want to make anybody mad, even though I'm the one who's in the right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I will say I have, have I burned a bridge? I would say I burned down a bridge. Not that I think that person understands that the bridge is burned, but I was like, I will never work with, and I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but like, and it was around my art, but there was a situation, it was a contest and, I submitted and the entity that was running the contest put up my artwork, said good job, tagged me on their story. So the first thing you get is that notification you've been tagged, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And so I go and I look, and then the caption was saying, "We don't want submissions like this." And they
What?
had misunderstood what my submission was. They assumed my submission was a pattern swatch, and it
Yeah.
wasn't. It completely met their like if you tried to repeat it, it wasn't going to repeat,
Mhm.
and it completely met their specifications. But they misinterpreted it. I contacted this individual directly and was told I needed to get over it because only 400 people saw it. So why was I over? Because I was like, you basically have publicly shamed me and you need
Yeah.
to take this down.
400 people also, hello, is a lot of people.
It's a
4
lot of
people is a
people,
lot of people. That's a terrible thing to do.
right? And so like, and and all I had said, and I sat on that for a little while for the exact reason that you're talking about. Like, okay, I too was trained. You don't have anything nice, but I'm like feeling this viscerally.
Oh,
You know what I'm saying?
absolutely. My blood would be boiling.
Oh, I was infuriated. I had to have a therapy session about it. Like I was infuriated. Like my therapist and I went into that one.
Yeah,
But yeah, and so like, and all I did was say, I need you to take this down. Like you are using my artwork as an example of what you do not want, and you're doing it publicly.
right.
That is not right.
Mhm.
And you are basically humiliating me for no good purpose.
Right.
Please take it down. And I was basically told I was overreacting.
Oh my gosh. It'd be one thing if they, if they did it anonymously and didn't put who it was, but here's the other thing. They also, I mean, I'm assuming, contests can be really weird. Some contests have terms and conditions where it says we reserve the right to repost your art, any art that you enter. But, sometimes I don't see that kind of terminology. And so again, that's not really stolen art, but for them to repost it, do they have the right to do that? More gray area. I
That's
don't
a good point.
know.
Yeah. And I didn't investigate that in the
You
terms.
should. You should
Yeah.
go back to the contest terms and conditions and look at if they have anything in there that says they reserve the right to share your work publicly. Um, you know, because if they're sharing your work publicly, but it's not in a disparaging way, of course,
Hmm.
that's nobody's going to care about that. So they would think we don't need to include that in our terms and conditions. But they were really unnecessarily disparaging you. If they had written to you personally and said, well, and oh my god, I mean, maybe they should have just asked you,
Hmm.
because they'd misunderstood what you were doing
Right.
and you followed their specifications. Yeah, I would look into that because,
Yeah. And I did tell
contests
them
are a
that too.
weird another gray area where you're
Yeah.
giving your art to someone
Right.
for consideration, and
Hmm.
there may or may not be any terms and conditions that are clear, and
Right.
basically kinda signing your art over in terms of
Yeah.
to be and then you're opening up the door for it to be stolen
Right.
as well. Uh,
Exactly.
so I do wanna say that one question that I hear from a lot of other artists is, should I not share my art on Instagram because or anywhere because people will steal it?
No,
Should I
get over
not
that.
put it on my website? So I know, Tony, you do watermarks, right?
Yes, I do. Hmm.
And you just do
So,
those in Photoshop?
well, you can do it in Procreate too. I do it both ways. In fact, the graphics gang is going to get a tutorial about that.
Yay!
Um, so, so I say one, like when I was in anti-terrorism, right? We had a website and we collected information about things, right? And so we had to deal with like Patriot Act and all this other stuff. And I remember having this long discussion about whether or not what to do about like social security numbers and like data privacy and stuff like that. And my team kept coming up with like these little one-offs. And I kept telling them we can't manage to the exception, right? It's like let's take it away from the esoteric because not a lot of people are going to relate to that. I had a friend and he was at Guitar Center and he was
Mhm.
playing the guitar because he was thinking about buying the guitar and he set his car keys next to his foot, right? He's playing, he's figuring it out. He decides he's not going to get the guitar, realizes his car keys are gone, someone stole his car. And he called me later and we were talking about that. He was so upset. He was blaming himself. I was so stupid. Why did I put my car's keys? And I told him, you cannot plan for bad actions,
Right.
right? You cannot, it's like terrorism. You can't plan for it because if somebody has malintent, you're not that way, you're not thinking about it, you can't, there's not enough you can do. So the only thing you actually end up doing if you refuse to put your art on a website and you refuse to put your art on social media is make it next to impossible for you to build your own brand awareness, which is if that's what you're trying to do. So my advice is always two things. One, put your logo on it, and then I watermark it. And so, like the watermark, if you know I'm doing it, you probably could see it. Like every time I look at my stuff, I see it because I know it's there. But the simplified thing that I do is that it's my service mark. It's not my logo because my logo is fully spelled out owl medicine. So I have a service mark that's just the owl and like a little circle with OM or something like that. So I use that. I change the blend mode to multiply and I reduce the opacity and I stick it somewhere in the design that
Mhm.
it's not overtly obvious because I don't want it to be distracting if an art director is looking at it,
Yeah.
but it's there. And then obviously the other thing too is don't put up high res images,
Right.
right?
That's what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I have a piece of artwork that I want to share on Instagram or Facebook or my website, I just make it 100 DPI. That way it
Mhm.
still looks nice. But I also make it no more than 1,000 pixels by 1,000 pixels. So it's good luck making that,
Yeah. And I need to
anything
adopt that last
quality.
part. Yeah, because mine's still
Yeah,
at
I make it a
3,000,
small
but yeah.
size,
Mhm.
and the other thing is I do sign my art, or if it's art that I hadn't signed when I was drawing it, usually I sign it right when I'm done drawing it, I'll just drop my logo in there somewhere, and I
Mhm.
make it obvious, but I just put it somewhere small. I try to put it inside the actual image too, so somebody can't just, like, clone stamp it out of the background and,
Mhm.
I mean, sometimes I do that. I'm a little bit inconsistent with that, but I try to at least identify who made this. And my number one thing that I always tell surface designers is never, even if it's low res, even if it's watermarked, never, ever, ever upload your repeat pattern block or pattern tile.
Mhm.
Because if somebody steals that and they just tile it and it repeats, no one in a repeat, no one's going to notice a watermark. No one is going to realize that it's a little pixelated because you can make it so many different scales and it's
Mhm.
really easy to steal that. So I always
Yeah.
tell people if you're doing if you want to show a pattern on Instagram, a repeat pattern that you did or on your website, go into Photoshop, make a new pattern, make a new image and do a pattern fill, but just don't make it where the edge to edge repeats seamlessly. Just do
Yeah.
it a little off, make sure you can see your motifs and stuff. But, uh, you know, that way somebody can't just steal it and repeat it and,
Right.
tile it on Spoonflower or whatever, because those watermarks and things are going to be easy to miss when it's
Yeah.
a repeat.
That's funny. That makes me question one of my own practices because I haven't been I lost my vocabulary. I haven't been careful about not doing the repeat, but what I've done was I just have this like bar that goes all the way across, so it breaks up the repeat,
Oh, well,
right?
that's fine too. I've seen
Yeah.
those on Instagram. No, you're fine doing that because they still can't repeat that image.
Yeah.
So they would have to
So,
rebuild the bottom part of that
right.
tile. So it's
Yeah.
the same thing. I mean, you're
Yeah.
doing the same thing. It's just a different way. And actually, that may even be a better way to do it because because you're also identifying who designed it on the bottom.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's really smart. I mean, mine is just the pattern. I used to put my little floating logo on there, but that got distracting because Instagram images are so small and
Yeah.
you don't want people to have to zoom in and see what I'm sharing. But yeah, I mean, not sharing your work either on social media or on your website for fear that it's going to be stolen. That is such a common fear I hear.
Mhm.
And I absolutely do not think that you should not share your work for fear of
Right.
it being stolen because you know what? It's going to get
It's gonna
stolen.
get stolen.
It's okay. Don't freak out when it happens. So I did have a recent experience where somebody stole my Reach for the Stars, which I knew was going to get
No.
stolen, and my name was still on it. And the funny thing is, they put it on a dye sublimation printing site called Inspire Uplift. I've never heard of them.
I've never heard of that.
But I have an attorney and I contacted my attorney because that was I actually specifically copyrighted
Mhm.
that art because as soon as I designed it and put it up, everybody went crazy over it. And I was like, I guess I better copyright this if everyone's going crazy over it.
Right.
So I did. So I contacted my attorney and I was kind of excited because I thought, ooh, am I going to get any money out of this? And he said, well, because this site is not in the United States and it's really just kind of like a free for all you can do is what's called a DMCA takedown notice. It's like the digital management content
Yeah.
something.
Mhm.
They have those on Redbubble too, but and they have that on that website you can actually hit a report button and it files it for you. Same
Yeah.
thing with Redbubble. I'm pretty sure Society 6 has that. So most of those print on demand sites, you can just file a DMCA takedown notice. And of
Right.
course, I was able to share the like, high resolution, like layered image and say, in case you need it, here's the proof
Right.
that this is mine. Also, by the way, look at my name. They didn't take my name off. It's still on there.
Right. Right. You know,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's me, but like I'm of the New Jack City era. Did you watch that movie
it has
growing up?
been so many years.
Right. And so what I mean by that when I say the New Jack City era is that Nino Brown was the king, right? Like, so if he was going to do this thing, he had this philosophy of, if I'm going to be a criminal, I'm going to be the best criminal ever,
Yeah,
right? You know, and being Italian in DC where I grew up, I got a lot of mafia jokes when I was
yeah,
a kid, right? You know, like what were my mafia connections and stuff like that. So I always had this mindset that if you were going to be a criminal, you needed to be a good one. You
yeah.
know what I'm
Don't
saying?
be a
So like,
stupid criminal.
right. So like when I see these people and they've stole like the guy that stole my books, take my name, do a different cover. Like what? What are you thinking? You know what I'm
Yeah, but aren't
saying?
you glad they are stupid? Because
Yes.
it
Yeah.
made the fact that this guy left my name on my Reach for the Stars art made it super easy because the
Yeah.
email was coming from the person with that name when I filed the DMCA
Yeah.
takedown notice. So,
Yeah.
I'm glad they're stupid.
Yeah.
But, here's the thing. So there are a lot of sophisticated criminals out there.
Mhm.
I am sure that at some point, if it hasn't already happened to you and me both, and many other people listening, our art is somewhere on Alibaba or our art is somewhere on some website. And I'm not
Right.
singling out Alibaba, I'm just using them as an example of a marketplace
Well,
with third party sellers.
I have to privately tell friends, like, because they're like, oh, blah, 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 this particular site. And I'm not going to name the name, but there are like three that come to mind right off the top of my head. And I'm like, they are known for stealing from independent artists. So be careful if you're going to buy, like
Yeah.
I see the articles, I see like, especially in the Facebook groups,
Yeah.
where they're like, I had to go report to XYZ, they stole my art, they put it on clothes or whatever, and so I'm like, be aware that you might be, you know, getting stolen artwork and people don't think about it
Yeah.
from that standpoint unless it's like I remember not too long ago, god, it was a really big site, I can't remember which one now. It was like of the H&M level, it wasn't H&M, but it was like of that level, like where it was in the news because they had stolen some independent artist thing, and in those situations I'm willing to believe they like I'm not gonna lie to you, I walked into Walmart
Hmm.
and saw what was essentially my own design embellished a little bit on a pair of sweats.
Oh my God. Really?
And yeah, and like I posted about it online and I was like, and people were like, you need to do something about it. I said, but I don't feel like I have the grounds to do it. A, I never officially copyrighted it. B, we both used the same royalty free silhouettes to start
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Right. But like, so it was like a silhouette of a woman, and I had done a flower crown, and the difference was like at the neck part, this artist had done some additional flowers that I didn't do.
Yeah.
But like from the neck up, it was basically my design. But I'm like, I don't know that I have a case because I started with a royalty free
Yeah.
silhouette. Like, I don't know. So in the end, it was just like, I don't have the time or the resources to like sort this out.
And
So
you'd
I'm
be
just gonna
going up against Walmart. So,
exactly.
yeah, I mean, that's the kind of case where I would pay my attorney
Hmm.
just to answer a question for me. But that's the thing though is, and you just said something that I wanted to address. So you said I didn't copyright it. That doesn't necessarily matter. You don't
I
have
know.
to copyright everything. I have
I
lots
know.
of art, and I'm not going to say what it is that I haven't copywritten, but
Yeah.
I have a process that I go through where if I pitch my art to a company that is a distributor for licensing and they take it, then I copyright it. Or if I create something that I feel like, okay, this is a thing, this is going
Yeah.
to be probably relatively popular, or if it starts selling well in my Etsy shop, I will turn around and I copyright everything myself now.
Yeah.
I can do up to 6 unpublished or 10 unpublished
10.
books for like
It's 80
$85,
$85 for 10
and
unpublished. I
it
think
takes like 5 minutes now, and I have a
yeah.
tutorial all about that in the
Yeah.
graphics gang, but
Yep.
I do that, but, if you create something by kind of by default, you already own the copyright to it.
Right.
But yeah, if you are starting with a royalty-free image, that is more of that gray area,
Exactly.
which I wouldn't know what to do with that either, but I would ask an attorney. Of course, that's not free,
Right.
but, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, and I have to tell you, so I have a great little story here about Dolly Parton.
Yeah. I want to hear this.
I love Dolly Parton. Who doesn't? She's amazing. And I was just doing some like portrait. I was messing around drawing portraits of just general people, not anybody specific. And I think I was like listening to Spotify and Dolly Parton came on. And I
Hmm.
was like, man, I would love to do a drawing of her. So I did. And I ended up putting it in. Had one of them printed. The title of it didn't have a title, and I had it up for sale at a gallery show, and it didn't sell anyway. But it actually got some traction on Instagram, and I didn't. I think I did say on Instagram, "Who doesn't love Dolly Parton?" or whatever.
Hmm.
It's obvious who it is, but I wasn't monetizing it except for that one print, which again, it didn't sell and it was going to be a one time physical print that,
Right.
and anyway, so, but I asked my attorney because one of my licensing partners, licensees saw it and they saw it on Instagram because it's not in my catalog as available for licensing. And they said, "We would love to get this from you. We love it." And I thought, wait a minute, hang
Right.
on. And I asked my attorney and I said, if I don't call this Dolly or I don't call it Dolly Parton's portrait or whatever, can I sell this? Can I license this? And he said, and again, I'm not an attorney. This would be individual case by case basis. But he said, I wouldn't do that if I were you because it's obvious who it is. And
Yeah.
you're basically banking on the likeness and recognition of
Right.
the likeness of this person. And that's
Right.
where it gets. So I was like, you know what? I had fun drawing it. It was a fun experiment. I shared it on Instagram. I'm not monetizing it in any way. It's
Right.
not disparaging, but still, and I completely drew it myself. It was not
Right.
from a photo or anything. I still was like, you know what? I'd rather be
Right.
safe and I don't want to get sued. And
Right.
side note, I have business insurance that covers copyright, both on both sides. It covers me if I have to go after somebody, and it also covers uh me if someone comes after me.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it wasn't super cheap, but
Yeah.
that does exist. That is out there.
Yeah, I'm actually talking to an insurance agent about that too. But along those same lines, I at the moment am wearing a Hello Kitty nerd t-shirt that I drew, right?
Nice.
Because like 10 years ago, I bought this t-shirt, right? It was for sale by Sanrio. Um, it disintegrated and fell apart after millions of washings, and I could not find it again. So I redrew it because as an artist, I can do that. I put the word hashtag nerd underneath it. Hello Kitty. I'm not going to try and get into the view, but Hello Kitty's wearing, nerd glasses.
Aw.
And I printed it off for me.
Yeah.
And when I wear it, people want to buy it. And I keep telling them, no, I
Yeah.
cannot sell it for you. I'm sorry, because I know that's their trademark.
Right.
But you can do that as an artist for yourself. I mean, it's for my own personal use. So like I don't believe, again, I'm not a lawyer, that I have infringed anything by making this for myself because I paid for it. I didn't make any money off of it,
Right.
but I absolutely will not ever sell it. And
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a good rule of thumb of, draw whatever you want. And if you're taking a class and you want to, imitate someone's style or trace over whatever you want, but don't turn around and sell it
right.
because that's where you're going to get into some, gray area and dangerous territory.
Right. And I also have some Star Wars and Star Trek emblem drawings that I did. Cause like for me, like May the Fourth be with you and,
Oh yeah.
first contact day and all, cause I am a nerd. That's why I have the shirt. And I've also had people reach out about those and I'm like, no, I can't sell it. I've had one person that I like just kind of printed and gave one to, you know what I'm saying? Cause I'm like, I know that there's big a nerd as I am, but
But
I'm
you
like, no,
gave
I
it to
can't.
them.
Yeah.
So
I'm
again,
like, I
it
can't
wasn't,
sell
you
it.
weren't selling it. Yeah.
I'm like, can't do that. It's trademark infringement. But it kills me. It absolutely kills me how many independent artists don't care. And
Yep.
they're just out there, like Ted Lasso was big for a while. And you see all this Ted Lasso stuff. And I'm like, that's not your IP. Like, I
Yeah.
get it. And I'm not disparaging anybody if that's your choice, but it's something I fundamentally disagree with. Having had my art stolen,
Yeah.
and I can be maybe like, because two things I thought about, two times my art has been stolen that I didn't think about initially. One was, and you know, and this is more like boundaries with friends, because I had this greeting card I did that just said you're a badass, right? So hand lettering, you're a badass, my particular style or whatever. And all of a sudden I see kind of like within the friend groups, people are sharing it, and they're sharing it in their professional pages. Like, remember, you're a badass. And on the one hand, I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. They liked it. But on the other hand, I'm like, you didn't ask my permission to do that.
Right.
Right. So,
Yeah.
like, I didn't say anything. I decided if they did it again, like, first time pass because you're an acquaintance or whatever. But like, if you do it again, like, I'm going to say something like, ask me, that's my art. Because I'm like, what if I took it, like, this one individual was a coach. I'm like, what if I took your coaching handbook and was like, here, friend, have
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? That's my career,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But then another one was, and this was really a gray area too, because I wasn't being paid for it. So I have my former business partner is a wedding planner. And so we had, like, for a while we were doing greeting cards together. Like, that was the original incarnation of Out Medicine. And we've since kind of like ended that partnership, but we're still really good friends. But she did I forget what they called it, a styled shoot. That's what she called it. So they were trying to like bring all these bridal vendors together. And somebody was doing lighting and somebody was doing this, that, or the other. And she asked me to do the paper products for it. So I designed table cards and numbers and like like a menu, so like all the things you would do for like a sit down reception. And the venue stole, like, used my art that I had, and it was the sketch, Carrie. It wasn't even the final artwork, because I sent the
Oh
sketch
no.
and I said, because I'm big, like, I want approval before I paint,
Yeah.
because I only want to actually ink or draw or like finalize it once,
No,
right? Like I
absolutely. Yeah. I always
right,
get sketches approved before I do
yeah.
any kind of final art. Yeah.
So to promote this event, they used my sketch, and I
Wow.
was like, and I did tell my friend about it though. I was like, you need to know, because I don't know these people. I don't, like, you're the middleman. You need to know they did that and they didn't have my permission to do it. And that is a big no-no.
Yeah.
So
Ugh.
yeah, just little things like that that people don't think about.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me cranky. And a lot of people are just trying to make a quick buck and they hope nobody notices.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the mentality that I picture when I'm envisioning this mysterious person on the other end of my stolen art, the like either, nefarious, like, aha, I'm going to steal this and make all this money, or the ignorant person, but that is just like, I don't care. I just want to make a quick buck. I'm going to get away with it until I get caught.
Yeah.
And, the other thing too is that Ted Lasso thing.
Hmm.
I don't know if Redbubble or like T Public had partnerships with, was that Universal or
I'm
ABC?
not sure. I think it's
Forget what net.
Apple. Yeah.
Oh
The
yeah, it
network was
was. It
Apple.
was Apple TV. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they had one with Ted Lasso, but a lot of these companies nowadays, and if you look on like Redbubble or T Public, and I think other ones have it too, they actually have partnerships with some of these IP, where now what you have to do, and I've done this and I've gotten rejected, I've gotten accepted and I've gotten rejected. You create, let's say, fan art,
Hmm.
about, for something or whatever, and then you upload it, but then you submit it to them
Right.
completely transparently for approval. And
Right.
then it is looked at by, which is kind of cool, by
Yeah.
the people in the studio to see if they approve it and they're
Right.
okay with you selling it. And again, they may say no, and then you're out of luck and you can't put that anywhere else because
Yeah.
they said no.
Right.
But sometimes if you really, really want to do some fan art, that's what I would recommend. If you're going to do it through the company. First look, make sure there even is a partnership. And there was a really great partnership with Redbubble that I had done a bunch of art for that I was really excited about, and I made a lot of sales. And then the partnership dissolved, and they
Mhm.
they ended it, and so they took all my art down.
Yeah.
So just know that, first of all, you're on someone else's platform, and
Right.
two, it's up to them. So,
Right.
but at least you're being transparent, and that's, I think, the best way to do it.
Yeah, I think so too. And just to clarify, oh, I just hit the mic. Hopefully that's going to sound bad. But so when we were talking about copyright and like the gray right, so like according to the law, as I understand it, the moment you hit save in any capacity, and with Procreate it's auto saving, but when it is fixed in form, I think is how the law actually reads, you own the copyright.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's registering that copyright with the Library of Congress. And I've sat in on, I hit the mic again. I need to get my hands away from it.
Oh, it's
I've
okay.
I've sat in on a couple workshops with Jason Aquilino,
My
uh,
attorney, I
your
love
attorney,
him.
and Stacy's attorney, and one day my attorney. Not yet though.
He is great.
Yeah, yeah, I get the impression. So, but you know that you have a greater legal standing if you have it registered versus I'm going to call it informal just to differentiate the two. And so, but yeah, so there's like, there's so many, but also AI, right? So
Oh, yeah.
like I know the Copyright Office has said they will not copyright AI art.
Yeah.
So I agree with that personally. But and just for the edification of our listeners too, I've had certain designs rejected by the Copyright Office. They said there wasn't enough artistic merit.
Mhm.
And so it does like so, and it was a blender, but it was a blender that I thought was original enough that I did try to get it copyrighted. It was just one. But there are designs that I don't bother. I'm never going to like, I'm not going to try and copyright a stripe. I'm not going to do polka dots,
Yeah.
like things like that. And so there's a good number of my blenders that I'm never even going to submit those to have it registered, but I still technically own that copyright for the one I created, you know. But I think that just in general, I think that we as independent artists, and this is just my personal opinion, it's the way that I run my conscience, is that I think that we have I don't want to say moral imperative, but like my conscience says that I don't want it done to me, so I'm not going to do it to you.
Yeah.
Right? The golden rule, right?
Yeah, that's just the way that you should live your life anyway, but absolutely. Yeah, I
Right.
second that. How
You
would you
know?
feel? Right. How would you feel? And is it really worth it for a
Right.
quick buck? For
That,
a dollar 10
right.
royalty on a print on demand site, really? And then you're gonna risk looking bad? And some
Right.
people will publicly shame you. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, yes, of course it's tempting to do that, but I always look at it like, is that really gonna do me any good? Isn't that just gonna
Yeah.
make me look bad? But believe me, I've had to hold my tongue and, like, walk away from the computer.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's like, is it really worth doing? If you know, if you feel like you can't draw something, you're like, I just can't, I'm trying to draw this turtle and I really want to draw a turtle and I can't get it right. And, you're like copying other people or stealing just go and look at a bunch of photos of turtles. Go and, trace some turtle photos and then just get rid of those tracings, but learn where the contours are and stuff. And then you will start muscle memorying. I know that's not a word, but
Hmm.
then you'll start being able to draw your own turtle. It's not easy to draw, but it's not impossible. And
Yeah.
it's not impossible to draw it in your own style. So,
Yeah.
like, let's say you want to draw a turtle and, you like the way this person draws turtles. Well, but maybe you usually do different colors and big eyes and they're facing a certain direction and they're dancing and they're wearing shoes. Well, but at that point, and
Right.
still don't recommend copying other people's art, but at that point, you've made it yours.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, but
Because I'm
I'm
not gonna lie.
not an attorney, so you know that may be wrong. I don't know.
Right.
I always, if I am ever unclear, now I just draw everything. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. Sometimes I'll look at a photo like next to it, and I'll be like, well, if if I'm drawing a bird, like where would their beak begin or whatever? Oh,
Yeah.
I see. All right. Well,
Mhm.
I like to make cutesy birds, so his beak's going to be in a totally different place anyway.
Right.
But if I'm ever unclear, I ask myself first of all, am I benefiting from someone else's recognizable art or someone else's recognizable imagery or
Right.
identity?
Mhm.
And because then that's stealing. You're stealing their thunder. You're stealing their in their brand basically.
Right.
Um, but if I'm not sure, I ask an attorney or I ask an expert, because every case is different. Oh,
Right.
and also, like, I had a person ask me, and I was like, "Well, first of all, I would ask an attorney, but you never put brand names on anything. If you wanna draw some Oreo cookies,
Right.
you better not write Oreo on there."
Exactly.
You can draw
Exactly.
Oreo cookies, although I would still, if it were me, I would make the filling pink.
Right. Something to
And
differentiate it.
I wouldn't trace the but it's an honest mistake because
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, they're kinda generic-y, it's like
Right.
but yeah. So
Yeah. I have a friend that she did, so we're in Wichita, and she did a puzzle that has like all of the major like landmarks of Wichita. And she's right now trying to get permission from all of those places to be in this puzzle, and like you have to be aware of that. And then we have a really prominent art feature here called the Keeper of the Plains. And it's this huge metal sculpture done by an indigenous artist, and it gets ripped off so much. And they just did like this big article in our local newspaper, maybe a year and a half ago, about the fact that this is copyrighted,
yeah.
and like all of you that are doing this art and thinking, it's about Wichita pride, you're actually like stealing from this artist.
Yeah,
Like
you're
you need to
stealing
get
from a local
permission.
artist from the area too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just think, it's just something to bear in mind.
yeah,
I don't think it's something to be ridiculously like, don't be afraid, like do the best you can, have positive intent. I've screwed up, I screwed up recently because
it's gonna happen.
yeah, it's gonna happen. I shared something that I thought was a free resource. I didn't realize it was temporarily free because the artist that I had shared it from was, trying to attract members into her membership.
Mhm.
So I just thought it was a free resource that she was offering. But no, it was really a draw. One of the people who works with her contacted me and I was like, "Oh, I'm going to take it down immediately. Like, so sorry. Didn't realize it was, that it was a temporary thing. Just thought it was a free resource. And thank you for letting me know because I don't
Yeah,
want to abuse anybody's IP, and I
right.
think that if you just, bear in mind and you have positive intent, it's going to be okay. But I also don't believe you should restrict yourself because you're afraid. It's going
Yeah,
to happen. It's going to happen because people are shitty and somebody is
yeah,
always going to outdo something stupid that you can't, plan for or protect yourself from.
yeah,
But if you take the necessary precautions, and for me, it's just part of my workflow. I finish a design, then I'm gonna adopt your 1,000 by 1,000 because I'm lazy, so I've just been leaving it at my 3,000 dimension. But I'm gonna adopt that. So my final workflow is always, I'm preparing everything for where all the places it's going to be uploaded to. But then the very last thing I do is and it's always labeled sharing resolution. So I've been doing it at 150, but I think I'm going to do 100. I do it at 100. If I'm going to crop it, I crop it, and then I do the watermarks and all the labeling for sharing. So that way, it's ready to go to be shared and I don't have to like do it, but then it's always there at sharing resolution. And that way I don't mistakenly upload my low res anywhere. So,
yeah. No, I think that's super smart. And yeah, I mean, it makes me cranky when people steal my art, but I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. I try to approach them, politely and professionally. And I do at the same time, contact the platform where it is. But I haven't had any horrible experiences yet. Knock on wood, I'm sure I will. Where someone's like, no, I'm not taking this down. I don't care. Or they ignore me and then the site won't take it down. And I don't want to think about, dealing with that because there are a lot of sites out there where it's hard and it's hard to know where
mhm.
people can share stuff and get away with it because the country that they're in is not the same country that you're in.
Yeah,
But I again, not for me, it's like the benefits of sharing my art always outweigh the risks of it being stolen.
agreed.
Because if someone steals my art, they are maybe gonna make a quick buck, and it's highly likely that I'll be able to eventually get it taken down. But the
Mhm.
risks of me not sharing my art means I don't get my art seen by anybody,
Right,
and then I'm just making art in the dark, hidden, and I don't get, I don't get the joy of seeing people be happy when they see it and
right,
potentially earning income on it. So,
right.
I feel like the
Exactly.
benefits are, yeah, don't not share art because you're scared that it'll get stolen. Um,
Right.
also that's also a cop out. If you really wanna dig down deep, I know I've done it where I'm, like, just procrastinating and I'm like,
Yeah,
"Oh, well,
yeah,
I don't want it to get stolen," so and it's really I'm just feeling lazy or I
yeah.
just don't feel like making art right then.
Right, but I think that we need to say that not the very act of creation in any form is an act of courage because somewhere inside of yourself you are taking something deeply personal and you are manifesting it in some way,
Yeah.
whether however whatever form that takes. Then to share it is a greater act of courage,
Yes.
right? And then to have it be stolen is a betrayal,
Yes,
right?
that's a really great way to put that, and that's exactly how it feels, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that, in all of that, there's a subconscious emotional driver that we don't really take the time to pay attention to when these things happen. But for me, sharing my art is part of who I am. I mean, I've got plenty of posts that never get any traction whatsoever, but it's like for me to go back and see kind of like the evolution of my art. When if you scroll to the bottom of my Instagram,
Oh, I know, believe me, if I do that, I'm like, I really want to erase a lot of this stuff, but I don't.
you know, but at the same time, it's like I think that we honor ourselves and we honor our creative selves every time we share. And there, and the actual act of protecting that art, whether it's dropping your logo on it, throwing a banner across it, putting a watermark on it, it becomes muscle memory itself. I
Yeah,
probably spend 5 minutes doing the protection things that I need to do to be able to share it, and it's just part of what I do now. So I don't worry about it. But, and then it's like, and maybe it's because I grew up in such a like fatalistic way. Because I grew up with a mother and we were in DC, but my mother was from West Virginia in a place where nobody locked their doors. So like we grew up, you know, in the hood-ish, we were hood adjacent,
yeah,
you know, um, working class neighborhood. My mom never locked the doors,
yeah,
and so it's like this. So and I grew up, in the violence of the 1980s in DC. And you just get to this fatalism of like, I can't control all of these things. So I just am going to do what I can do. So I watermark, I put my logo on it, I clearly make it plain that this is my art, and I let it go. And I think
yeah.
that's all you can do.
That's the best you can do, yeah, and I even have or had I have to edit it, but I had a Photoshop action set up, so it would automatically resize the image, rename it, change the DPI. I hit one button and it's done and it exports it and I don't
Yep.
have to it's like literally I hit one keyboard
Yep.
command and
I
it's
have an
done
action
in like
too.
seconds, yeah.
Mhm.
So, it's definitely worth doing, but well,
Yeah.
this was a really good one.
Yeah, I like it.
It's one that I get asked about a lot, and it's one that concerns me on a semi-regular basis, so I hope
Yeah.
that, not only were people able to feel a little less alone and feel a little more like, "It's okay that you're cranky, believe me, we are
Yeah.
too," but there are solutions, and I love what you said about it being an act of courage because it is, and the having your art stolen does feel like a betrayal on some level, you could try to look at it as flattery, but that only lasts for so long.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
the betrayal part, you've just got to try to be like, well, it happens. It happens to everybody. You can do things to protect yourself. And when in doubt, I am always willing to pay my attorney for personal advice where I can just send him the image and say, what should I do about this?
Yeah,
But not everybody
absolutely.
can afford to do that. So, when in doubt, go with your gut, have good intentions. And if somebody calls you out on accidentally, you know, stealing their art, just be polite and apologize and take it down.
Exactly.
Most people that I know, including myself, would be completely understanding about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
All right. I think
cool.
that's a wrap. If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we'd love it if you could rate and review us. Your support helps more people discover the show and it keeps us going strong. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot. I'm Toni.
And I'm Carrie. It's okay to be cranky.
In the meantime, keep creating.